The royal infirmary of the Zillion Palace shimmered under the soft glow of bioluminescent vines that coiled along the ceiling like sleeping serpents. Outside, the twin suns of Virilia cast long, golden shadows across the floating gardens, but inside, the air was cool and still, scented faintly with crushed moonblossoms and antiseptic herbs. Captain Ren Torval stood near the gilded examination table, his boots scuffed from battle, his uniform torn at the shoulder, but his hands, steady, calloused, and human, were working with surprising delicacy. Before him sat Queen Lyra of Xylos, her porcelain-white skin marred by a deep gash along her forearm, a souvenir from the failed assassination attempt during the treaty signing. Her crimson hair, usually braided in intricate royal fashion, now tumbled loosely over one shoulder like a cascade of fire against snow. She watched him in silence, her large, violet eyes unreadable, though her breathing had slowed to something almost peaceful. Ren had never imagined he'd be patching up an alien queen. Less than a week ago, he'd been stationed on the Outer Rim, chasing smugglers through asteroid belts and surviving on protein paste and sarcasm. Then came the distress call from Virilia, a coded plea wrapped in diplomatic urgency, and before he knew it, he was aboard a royal shuttle, whisked away to a world where gravity felt lighter and time seemed to stretch like taffy. He'd expected cold protocol, stiff guards, maybe even imprisonment for his species' past transgressions. Instead, he'd been handed a medkit and told, "The Queen insists only you tend to her." No explanation, just those words, spoken by a silver-eyed attendant who vanished before Ren could ask why. Now, as he dabbed the wound with a damp cloth infused with healing moss, his fingers trembled, just slightly. Not from fear, but from the sheer absurdity of it all. He was a grunt, a nobody from Earth's forgotten colonies, and she was Lyra of the Seven Moons, ruler of a civilization older than human history, worshipped by billions as the living embodiment of cosmic balance. And yet, here she sat, barefoot on a velvet stool, wearing only a translucent silk robe that shimmered like starlight, letting him touch her skin as if he were someone worthy of the honor. His hands slipped, not dramatically, just a small, clumsy slide as he reached for the bandage roll. His knuckles brushed the soft curve of her inner wrist, then grazed lower, grazing the delicate hollow where her pulse fluttered like a trapped bird. He froze. Heat rushed to his cheeks. Sorry, he stammered, yanking his hand back as if burned. Didn't mean to. But Queen Lyra didn't recoil. Instead, she tilted her head, and a slow, shy smile bloomed across her lips. Small, almost secretive, like she'd just caught him doing something endearingly foolish. Transformed her. The regal mask fell away, revealing something softer, younger, almost amused. "Your hands are warm," she said, her voice low and melodic, like wind chimes in a quiet storm. "Our healers wear gloves. Cold, precise. You feel real." Ren swallowed. "Real's overrated," he muttered, trying to sound casual, but his voice cracked. He busied himself with the bandage, wrapping it with exaggerated care, though his mind raced. Why was she being so human about this? No, so kind. He'd read the files. Zillions were stoic, ritual-bound, emotionally reserved except in sacred ceremonies. Yet here she was, smiling at him like he'd just told a joke only she understood. Outside, the palace bells chimed, deep, resonant tones that signaled the hour of twilight. But before the last echo faded, the doors burst open, not with ceremony, but with violence. 3 armored guards stumbled in, their silver carapaces dented, one clutching a bleeding side. "Your Majesty," gasped the lead guard, his voice ragged. "They've breached the lower sanctum. The obsidian hand, they're not gone. They've returned with weapons from the void vault." Lyra's smile vanished. In an instant, she was on her feet, posture straight, eyes blazing with authority. The wounded arm she'd just let Ren tend now clenched into a fist. "How?" she demanded. The vault was sealed by the first Concord. The seal was broken from within, the guard panted. Someone inside the court helped them. Silence fell like a blade. Ren felt the weight of suspicion settle in the room. He was the only outsider, the only human, and humans, in Zillion history, were synonymous with betrayal, ever since the War of Shattered Skies, when Earth's fleets had scorched 3 Zillion colonies in a misguided crusade for resources. Lyra turned to him. Her expression was unreadable again. But then, slowly, she reached out and placed her uninjured hand over his. "You didn't do this," she said, not as a question, but as a decree. I know. Ren blinked. You know. I felt it, she said simply. When your hands slipped, there was no deceit in your touch, only surprise, and something else. She paused, her gaze searching his. Kindness. Before he could respond, the palace shook. A deep, guttural roar echoed through the corridors. Not mechanical, not organic, but something in between. The sound of ancient war machines waking. The void vault weapons. Forbidden tech, forged in the heart of a dead star, capable of unraveling matter at the quantum level. We must move, Lyra said, already striding toward a hidden panel in the wall. She pressed a sequence of glyphs, and a passage yawned open, revealing a narrow stairwell spiraling downward into darkness. The Royal Archives. The shielded. They won't find us there. Ren hesitated. What about your people? The guards. They'll hold the line, she said, but her voice wavered, just for a second. As they always do. He saw it then, the burden she carried. Not just a queen, but a woman who'd lost too many to war, who'd signed peace treaties with trembling hands, who let a human soldier dress her wounds because maybe, just maybe, she was tired of being alone in her grief. Then I'm coming with you, he said, stepping forward. Not as a guard, not as a human, just as someone who doesn't want to see you hurt again. She studied him for a long moment. Then, without a word, she took his hand and pulled him into the passage. The stairs descended for what felt like miles, the air growing colder, the walls slick with condensation. Bioluminescent fungi pulsed along the stone, casting eerie blue light. Somewhere above, explosions rattled the palace foundations. Dust rained from the ceiling. They won't stop, Lyra said quietly as they walked. The obsidian hand believes I've grown weak. That peace with your kind is a betrayal of Zillion purity. They want to restore the old ways. Conquest, isolation, blood sacrifice. Sounds like every extremist group in human history, Ren muttered. Funny how the script never changes. Just the species. She glanced at him, a flicker of amusement in her eyes. You speak as if you've seen many wars. Enough to know they're all stupid, he said. Especially the ones fought over who's pure enough to exist. They reached a heavy door made of black stone, etched with spiraling constellations. Lyra placed her palm on a central glyph, and it glowed crimson before retracting into the wall. Inside, the archives stretched endlessly. Shelves of crystalline data rods, holographic scrolls floating in stasis fields, ancient star maps woven into tapestries of light. At the center stood a pedestal holding a single object, a dagger made of obsidian and starlight, its hilt shaped like a coiled serpent. The Fong of Elion, Lyra whispered, last weapon of the Concord, said to sever lies from truth. Ren frowned. You brought me here to look at a fancy knife? No, she said, turning to face him fully. I brought you here because the obsidian hand isn't just after the throne. They're after you. He froze. Me? They believe your presence here is no accident. That Earth sent you to retrieve the Fong to use it against us. They think you're a spy. I'm a supply runner with a busted NAV comm, he protested. I barely passed basic diplomacy. And yet, she said, stepping closer, you're the only one who's touched me without fear or agenda since my coronation. That's not nothing, Ren Torval. He hadn't told her his name. He was sure of it. How do you? I read your file, she admitted, a hint of sheepishness returning. And I asked the attendants. You talk in your sleep. About a dog named Rust. And a sister on Mars. Ren's throat tightened. He hadn't mentioned Rust to anyone in years. Not since the mining collapse. Before he could process it, the archive doors exploded inward. Smoke and fire filled the chamber. Through the haze emerged 5 figures clad in jagged black armor, their faces hidden behind masks shaped like snarling beasts. At their lead stood a tall, wiry Zillion with eyes like burning coals and a voice like grinding stone. Sister, he sneered, you hide among relics while our people bleed. Lyra's brother, Prince Valen, declared dead after the last civil uprising. But here he stood, very much alive, holding a pulsating rifle forged from void metal. You betrayed the Concord, Lyra said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. You broke the seal. I freed it, Valen spat, while you played diplomat with vermin. His gaze snapped to Ren. And you pathetic earthrat. Did you really think you could steal our soul and walk away? Ren raised his hands. Look, I don't even know what the Fong does. I just patched up your sister's arm. Accidentally touched her wrist. Big deal. Valen laughed. A harsh, grating sound. The touch was the beginning. The Concord's magic responds to intent. You felt her vulnerability. You wanted something. And the Fong knows. Lyra stepped in front of Ren. He wants nothing but to go home. Leave him out of this. Impossible, Valen said. The prophecy is clear. When an off-worlder touches the queen without armor, the Fong awakens, and the balance shifts. He raised his rifle. So I'll reset it. Starting with him. He fired. But Lyra moved faster. She shoved Ren aside and lunged for the Fong. The moment her fingers closed around the hilt, the entire archive lit up. Golden light erupting from the walls, the shelves, the very air. The void rifle's blast dissolved into harmless sparks. Valen snarled. You fool! You've awakened it too soon. The Fong pulsed in Lyra's hand, humming with energy. She turned to Ren, her eyes wide with something between terror and awe. It's choosing, she whispered. It's choosing you. What? No, I don't want to be chosen. I just wanted to deliver some damn plasma coils and go back to my bunk. But the Fong's light stretched toward him, tendrils of gold wrapping around his wrist. The same wrist that had slipped and touched hers. The connection was undeniable. Above them, the palace groaned. A new sound joined the chaos. Not explosions, but the deep, resonant hum of a starship descending. Human engines. Earth fleet signatures. Valen's mask cracked into a grin. Ah, reinforcements. Or betrayers. Lyra's face paled. They wouldn't, not now. But Ren knew. He recognized the frequency. It was the Aurora Dawn, his old command ship. And its captain, Commander Jorin, had never liked aliens. Never trusted peace. They're here for the Fong, he realized aloud. They knew. All along. Betrayal cut deeper than any wound. He'd been used. Not just by Valen, but by his own people. Lyra looked at him, her expression softening. You didn't know. I should have suspected, he said bitterly. Humans don't send captains on errands unless there's something to steal. She squeezed his hand, the one not bound by the Fong's light. Then prove them wrong. Outside, the battle intensified. The obsidian hand clashed with royal guards in the corridors. The Earth fleet began orbital bombardment, targeting the palace shields. The archive trembled. Valen raised his rifle again. But this time, the Fong reacted on its own. A beam of pure light shot from its tip, not at Valen, but at the ceiling, shattering a hidden conduit. Ancient machinery whirred to life. The floor beneath them began to shift, panels sliding apart to reveal a hidden hangar below. The sky chariot, Lyra breathed. It's real. A sleek, crescent-shaped vessel rose from the depths, its surface gleaming like liquid silver. Legend said it could outrun light itself, built by the first Concorde to escape cosmic collapse. We have to go, she said, pulling Ren toward it. Now. Valen roared and charged, but the archive's defenses activated. Energy tendrils lashing out, binding him in place. You can't run forever, sister. The Fong demands a sacrifice. One of you must die for the other to wield it. Lyra didn't look back. She dragged Ren onto the chariot's ramp, which sealed behind them with a hiss. The cockpit lit up automatically, responding to her royal biometrics. Stars flickered on the viewscreen. Ren stared at the controls, overwhelmed. I don't know how to fly this thing. You don't have to, she said, taking the pilot's seat. It knows where to go. Where's that? She met his eyes, her crimson hair glowing in the console light. Wherever the Fong leads. And right now, it's pointing to you. The chariot shot upward, piercing through the palace dome, dodging debris and laser fire. Below, the Zillion capital burned, torn between brother and sister, human and alien, past and future. Above, the Earth fleet loomed like vultures. Ren slumped into the co-pilot seat, the Fong still humming in his grip, its warmth spreading through his veins. He thought of Rust, of his sister, of the quiet life he'd dreamed of. Gone. All of it. But then Lyra reached over and rested her hand on his. Not as a queen. Not as a stranger. Just as someone who, like him, had been thrown into a storm not of their making. I'm sorry your hand slipped, she said softly. He almost laughed. Yeah, me too. But as the chariot leapt into hyperspace, tearing a hole in reality itself, he wasn't so sure. Maybe the slip had been the best thing that ever happened to him. Because now, for the first time, he wasn't just surviving. He was part of something bigger. And somewhere out there, in the endless dark between stars, the Fong of Elion began to sing. The sky chariot tore through the fabric of hyperspace like a needle stitching time itself, leaving behind the burning silhouette of Virilia and the twin betrayals that had shattered it. Valen's fanaticism from within, Earth's greed from above. Inside the vessel, silence reigned, thick with exhaustion and the hum of ancient engines. Ren slumped in the co-pilot seat, the Fong of Elion still clutched in his hand, its golden light now dimmed to a soft pulse, as if sleeping. Lyra guided the ship with quiet precision, her white fingers dancing over crystalline controls that responded to her thoughts more than her touch. Her crimson hair was tousled, her silk robe singed at the edges, but her posture remained regal. Even in flight, she carried the weight of a crown no one could see. Ren watched her from the corner of his eye. There was something different now. Not just the shared danger, not just the brush with death, but the way she defended him, believed in him even when the evidence screamed otherwise. He'd spent his life being told he was expendable. A grunt, a backup plan, a name on a roster. But Lyra had looked at him like he mattered, like he was real. "You're staring," she said without turning, a faint smile playing on her lips. "Can't help it," he muttered. "You've got that whole mysterious alien queen who just stole a legendary spaceship thing going on." She laughed, a light, musical sound that filled the cockpit like sunlight through storm clouds. "I didn't steal it. The chariot chose to awaken, just as the Fong chose you." "Still don't get that part," he said, flexing his fingers around the hilt. "Why me? I'm not special. I fix engines, drink bad coffee, and forget to pay my comms bill." "Perhaps that's why," she said softly. "You don't seek power. You seek connection." He looked away, suddenly uncomfortable. "Don't go all poetic on me. I'm barely holding it together as it is." But the moment had shifted. The air between them was charged, not with tension, but with something warmer, quieter. Recognition. Two souls adrift, finding unexpected harbor in each other. Then the ship shuddered. Alarms blared, a low, mournful wail. The hyperspace tunnel collapsed around them, spitting them back into normal space with a violent lurch. Stars snapped into focus, cold and indifferent. Ahead loomed a derelict station, its hull pitted with age, drifting in the shadow of a dead moon. It bore no markings, no signal, just silence and decay. "The Echo Spire," Lyra whispered, her face paling. "It's not on any chart. It was erased from records after the Concord War." "Why are we here?" Ren asked, gripping his seat. The Fong pulsed once, bright and insistent, then went still. On the view screen, a single glyph appeared, the same spiral constellation from the archive door. "It wants us to go inside," Lyra said. "Of course it does," Ren groaned. "Because nothing says, safe haven, like a haunted space junkyard." But they had no choice. The chariot's fuel reserves were low, and the Earth fleet would be scanning every jump point. They needed to hide and maybe, just maybe, understand what the Fong truly was. Inside the spire, gravity was erratic. One moment they floated, the next they slammed into the floor. The corridors were lined with shattered consoles, frozen in time, their screens displaying static that seemed to whisper when you weren't looking. Lyra led the way, her bare feet silent on the metal grating, Ren close behind, hand on the Fong like a talisman. Then they found the chamber. At its center stood a mirror. Not glass, but liquid silver suspended in a ring of black stone. As they approached, it rippled, and in its surface images formed. Not reflections, memories. Ren saw himself as a boy on Mars, burying rust under a red sky, tears cutting tracks through the dust. He saw his sister waving from a transport ship, promising to write, never knowing it would be the last time. He saw himself alone in a barracks, staring at a blank wall, wondering if anyone would miss him if he vanished. Lyra gasped. She saw her coronation. The weight of the crown, the silence of the court, the moment she realized she'd never be allowed to grieve her parents properly. She saw Valen, not as a traitor, but as a boy who'd held her hand during thunderstorms, who'd sworn to protect her before jealousy twisted his heart. The mirror showed their loneliness, their hidden wounds, the parts they never let anyone see. And then it showed something else, a vision of them together, not as queen and soldier, but as equals, walking through a garden under twin suns, laughing over a broken comms unit, holding hands as an old starship lifted off into dawn, a future that felt possible. Ren's breath caught. Is that real? It's a possibility, Lyra said, her voice trembling. The spire shows what could be, if we choose it. He turned to her. Do you want it? Before she could answer, the ground shook. Footsteps echoed down the hall, boots, heavy and human. Then voices. Signals coming from this sector. A familiar voice growled. Commander Jorin. Ren's blood ran cold. They tracked us. Lyra's eyes hardened. We can't let them take the Fong. We won't, he said, stepping in front of her. But I need to know something first. She looked at him, confused. If we survive this, would you really walk through that garden with me? Even knowing I'm just a guy who fixes engines and forgets his comms bill. Her shy smile returned, the same one from the infirmary. I'd walk through fire for you, Ren Torval. The words hung between them, fragile and fierce. Then the door exploded inward. Jorin stood there, flanked by Marines in black tactical armor. His face was grim, his eyes cold. Hand over the artifact, Torval. This doesn't have to end badly. It already has, Ren said, tightening his grip on the Fong. You used me. I saved Earth, Jorin snapped. The Zillions have tech that could end us. We needed leverage. You needed an excuse to start another war, Lyra said, stepping forward. Your fear blinds you. Jorin raised his rifle. Last chance. But Ren didn't move. Instead, he did something reckless. He pressed the Fong into Lyra's hands. You wield it, not me. She stared at him, stunned. But the prophecy. Screw the prophecy, he said. I trust you more than I trust some ancient knife. The moment her fingers closed around the hilt, the Fong erupted. Not with light, but with sound. A single, pure note that shook the station to its core. The mirror behind them shattered, and from its fragments rose a swarm of spectral figures. Echoes of the Concord, warriors of light and memory. Jorin fired. The blast hit one of the echoes and passed right through. The figures turned toward the Marines, not with violence, but with sorrow. One reached out and touched a soldier's helmet. The man dropped his weapon, tears streaming down his face as he remembered his daughter's laugh, his mother's voice, everything he'd buried under duty. Jorin staggered back. What is this? Truth, Lyra said. The Fong doesn't kill. It reveals. And you're not ready to face what it shows. The Marines lowered their weapons, overwhelmed by their own memories, their own regrets. Only Jorin remained standing, fists clenched, jaw tight. But even his eyes glistened. Ren walked toward him. Go home, Jorin. Tell them the war's over. Not because we won, but because we chose something better. For a long moment, the commander said nothing. Then, with a bitter laugh, he holstered his rifle. You always were a damn fool, Torval. He turned to his men. We're leaving. As the Marines retreated, the spectral figures faded, the station falling silent once more. Ren exhaled, his legs nearly giving out. Lyra caught him, her arms surprisingly strong. You could have died, she whispered. Worth it, he said, leaning into her. For that garden. She laughed, but it was tinged with worry. The obsidian hand won't stop. Neither will the hardliners on Earth. We're hunted from both sides. Then we run, he said. Or we fight. Or we build something new. But we do it together. She looked at him, really looked, and in her violet eyes he saw not just a queen, but a woman who'd finally found someone who saw her, not her title. But their moment was shattered by a new sound. A deep, resonant chime echoing through the spire. From the ceiling, a hidden panel slid open, revealing a data crystal pulsing with blue light. It floated down and hovered before Lyra. She touched it and gasped. What is it? Ren asked. Her face was pale. It's a message from my mother, recorded before she died. She activated it. A hologram flickered to life. A woman with white skin and red hair, older, weary, but kind. Lyra, she began, her voice trembling. If you're seeing this, the Concord's final secret has been uncovered. The Fong is not a weapon. It's a key. And it only works when wielded by two souls who choose each other freely, without duty, without prophecy, without fear. She paused, tears in her eyes. The true balance isn't power over others. It's trust between equals. Find that person, my daughter, and never let go. The hologram faded. Silence. Then Ren grinned. So, we're the key? Lyra looked at him, her shy smile returning, brighter this time. It seems so. But before they could celebrate, the spire's alarms blared again. Different this time. Not human. Not Zillion. A third signal. From deep space. Something ancient. Something waking. Lyra's eyes widened in recognition. The Void Watchers. They've sensed the Fong's activation. Who are they? Ren asked. The ones who sealed the Void Vault, she said, voice tight with dread. They don't care about thrones or treaties. They erase anything that threatens cosmic balance, including us. The chariot's engines roared to life on their own, as if sensing the danger. The ship was calling them back. Ren took Lyra's hand, the one not holding the Fong. Then we'd better get moving. As they ran back through the crumbling corridors, the station collapsing behind them, he couldn't help but laugh. You know, for a guy who just wanted to deliver plasma coils, I'm really bad at keeping things simple. Lyra squeezed his hand. Simple is overrated. They leapt onto the chariot's ramp just as the spire imploded behind them. The ship shot into the void, faster than light, faster than fate. And somewhere in the endless dark, two hearts beat in sync. Human and Zillion, wounded and whole, running not from destiny, but toward it, together. The garden would have to wait, but it was coming. The sky chariot soared through the nebulae like a comet stitched from starlight and stubborn hope, its silver hull glinting in the wake of dying stars and newborn suns. For weeks or maybe months, time blurred in the folds of deep space. They evaded the Void Watchers, those faceless sentinels of cosmic order who saw love as chaos and unity as imbalance. Ren learned to read the chariot's hums and shivers like a second language, while Lyra deciphered ancient Concord texts that spoke not of war, but of harmony, of bridges built not with steel, but with trust. They found refuge in forgotten places. A moon wrapped in perpetual auroras, a hollowed-out asteroid humming with forgotten music, a drifting library ship tended by AI monks who'd sworn off violence millennia ago. In each stop, they grew not just closer, but more. Ren taught Lyra how to brew terrible earth coffee. She pretended to hate it, but always drank a second cup. She showed him how to weave light strands into constellations that told stories of courage and forgiveness. They argued over navigation, laughed over burnt rations, and once, during a meteor shower outside the viewport, she leaned her head on his shoulder and whispered, I never knew peace could feel like this. But peace, they learned, wasn't the absence of danger. It was the choice to face it together. The final confrontation came not with fanfare, but with silence. The Void Watchers cornered them near the Helix Rift, a place where space folded in on itself like a closed fist. Their vessels were sleek and black, shaped like obsidian tears, emitting no signals, no threats, just inevitability. One by one, escape routes vanished. The chariot's engines sputtered under the weight of cosmic pressure. They're not attacking, Ren said, gripping the controls. They're waiting. Lyra stood beside him, the Fong of Ilion resting between them on the console. They want us to surrender the key, to undo what we've become. And if we don't, then they'll unmake us, she said simply. Not kill, unmake, as if we never existed. Ren looked at her, at the woman who'd smiled shyly when his hands slipped, who'd believed in him when no one else would, who'd chosen him not as a tool, but as a partner. He reached for her hand. Then let them try. Together, they stepped onto the chariot's observation deck, the Fong held between their joined palms. No weapons, no shields, just two souls standing in the void, defiant in their tenderness. The lead watcher vessel opened a channel, not with sound, but with thought, cold and vast as a glacier. You disrupt the pattern. You must be corrected. Lyra spoke first, her voice steady. We don't disrupt. We complete. The Concorde's true design was never isolation. It was connection. You forgot that. Ren added. And you can't unmake love. It's not a flaw in the system. It's the whole point. They raised the Fong not as a weapon but as a declaration. And then, something miraculous happened. The Fong didn't fire. It sang. A single, pure note, like the one in the Echo Spire, but deeper, richer, woven from every moment they'd shared. The accidental touch, the shared laughter, the quiet confessions in the dark. The note spread through space, not as energy, but as memory. It reached the Watchers' ships, and something inside them remembered. Centuries ago, the first Watchers had been Zillions, guardians who'd sacrificed their emotions to maintain balance. But emotion was not chaos. It was the seed of wisdom. One by one, the black vessels dimmed. Then, slowly, they turned away, vanishing into the rift without a word. Not defeated, awakened. Silence returned. But it was a different kind, warm, expectant, full of possibility. Back on the chariot, Ren let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. Did we just win with a love song? Lyra laughed, tears in her eyes. The oldest weapon in the universe. With the threat gone, the chariot charted a new course, not to hide, but to heal. They returned to Virilia, not as fugitives, but as heralds. Valen, broken by his defeat and the truth revealed by the Fong, surrendered without resistance. The obsidian hand dissolved, its members seeking redemption in service rather than conquest. On Earth, Commander Jorin, haunted by the echo of his own regrets, pushed through a historic peace accord, the first of its kind between human and Zillion worlds. And in the heart of the rebuilt royal gardens, beneath the twin suns that once cast long shadows of war, a ceremony was held. No grand throne room, no rigid protocol, just an open-air pavilion woven from living vines and starlight, filled with humans, Zillions, and a few curious AI monks who'd traveled light years to witness it. Ren wore a simple tunic of deep blue, stitched with silver threads that shimmered like constellations. Lyra wore white. Not the cold white of morning, but the warm white of dawn. Her crimson hair braided with moon blossoms, her eyes brighter than any jewel. When the High Concord Elder asked if they chose each other freely, without duty or prophecy, they both answered before the words were fully spoken. Yes, and when they exchanged vows, not of power or legacy, but of laughter, patience, and burnt coffee, they sealed it with a kiss that made the bioluminescent vines glow gold. Afterward, as guests celebrated with music that blended earth strings and Zillion chimes, Ren pulled Lyra aside to a quiet balcony overlooking the floating gardens. "Still think I'm just a guy who fixes engines?" he asked, grinning. She leaned into him, her head resting on his shoulder just like during that meteor shower. "You're the man who taught me that slipping isn't failure. It's how you find what you were meant to hold." Below them, children, human and Zillion, chased fireflies that weren't fireflies at all, but tiny drones shaped like stars, programmed to bring joy instead of war. Ren wrapped his arm around her. "So, about that garden." She smiled, the same shy, secret smile from the infirmary, now full of promise. "It's already growing." And as the twin suns dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of rose and violet, the Fong of Ilion, now embedded in the palace's central spire, pulsed once, gently, like a heartbeat. Not of a weapon, but of a home. Beneath Virilia's twin suns, the wedding feast spilled into the gardens, laughter weaving through the air like music. Ren, in his simple blue tunic, held Lyra's hand as firefly drones danced above them, casting golden light on faces once divided by fear. She leaned into him, her crimson hair catching the sunset, her smile no longer shy but sure, anchored in a love forged in chaos and chosen in peace. No thrones separated them now. They sat side by side on a bench grown from living crystal, sharing a cup of terrible earth coffee she pretended to hate. Around them, former enemies broke bread, Zillion elders teaching human children star songs, earth diplomats learning to braid moon blossoms into crowns. The Fong of Ilion rested in the palace spire, not as a weapon, but as a beacon, its pulse steady as a shared heartbeat. Valen served tea in silence, his penance quiet but sincere. Commander Jorin raised a toast, his voice rough with unshed tears. To the ones who dared to trust, the chariot hovered nearby, no longer a vessel of escape, but a symbol of return. As night fell, Ren whispered, "Still think I'm just a mechanic?" Lyra kissed his knuckles, the same hands that once slipped, now steady in hers. "You're my home," she said, and in that garden, under a sky stitched with stars they'd once fled, they began not an ending, but a forever gentle, brave, and gloriously, wonderfully ordinary.